Welcome back to Pints and Politics. I don't even know what episode we're on now.
Man, it's like 37.
36.
36. I remember it was Christian Okoye the last go-around. That's how I keep track.
I
It's
don't
like
know
football
anybody.
jersey numbers. It's like this associative way to, keep track. But
Who wore
yeah.
36, though?
I don't
How are
know.
we going to remember this?
Maybe Dave Durson or something like that, of the
I don't even know
Bears
who that is.
85 defense, maybe? I don't know. It's got to be a DB. I just remember Christian Okoye because you were like, yeah, I used to emulate him. I'm like,
Nigeria Nightmare.
yeah, I'm like, wait a minute. You're like 5'9", 5'10". You're like 200
White as can
maybe.
be.
That's the opposite
Yeah.
of Okoye. But, man, how you been doing, man?
We all can dream.
I know. We took a little brief hiatus there. We didn't
We've
intend.
been wide open with the
I know.
storms. I mean, you were down in Florida with the storms, and I've
Yeah.
been traveling. And
Yeah,
trying to
Helene
do some
came
things.
through and responded to that, and then Milton comes right behind it, and we got to
Yeah.
turn a battleship and send 150 guys down there and try to help those folks down there. So, yeah, man, been running.
yeah,
Been running.
I don't know
man.
how you do it.
But let's thank our sponsor.
Yeah,
Comer
Comer
Distributing.
Distributing.
What do you think? We went ahead and opened this Highland Brewing out of Asheville, North Carolina. We sort of wanted to,
Another Marzen lager.
yeah, yep, and we wanted to, Asheville's hurting right now. Wanted to maybe spotlight Highland Brewing up there.
Yeah.
This is their seasonal Clawhammer Oktoberfest.
I like that they have the born on date on it.
It's
So,
kind of like Bud Light.
yeah, well, I like that you can tell it's fresh.
It makes Guffy feel comfortable.
I walked right into that one. All right.
It's
But
like a Snuggie.
I'm more of a Baja person, not a Snuggie person.
Yeah, that's right. You did walk into that. Thank
I
you,
did.
by the
That
way.
was bad. Just teed it right up for you.
Bud Light, a beer Snuggie for Guffy.
Yeah.
All right, man. What you been up to?
Oh man! So started off the week at the solicitors conference down in Myrtle Beach. So that was good. Was able to talk on Gavin's Law with our solicitor bracket
Oh yeah.
and explain it, which I think went really well. Got a standing ovation.
Now is that solicitors conference just for the state?
Yeah, just South Carolina.
Okay,
So all
so it's-
16 circuits and their staff down
Gotcha.
there. Law enforcement, SLED,
So they
attorney
have
generals.
this is their conference week where everybody goes down and socializes, networks, probably get some continuing ed, and then also
Yeah.
some speaking
A
stuff.
lot of it is the continuing education credits.
Yeah.
That's what I heard most people like, oh, we got to sit in here the entire
Yep,
time.
I think
You
every
can't even
industry
leave.
has these things.
Yeah. Uh,
So what'd y'all talk about? I mean, just Gavin's Law. Was it something that you were up there by yourself, or did you and Brackett do a panel type?
We sat down up there, so we just started off, and Brackett explained kind of what happened with Gavin and where it came from, and then I got up there and explained how we got it through the process, even whenever we were writing the law, on why it was important to hear from all sides. Because me as a father lost a kid, I want the death penalty, but luckily I had some people explain to me, like, your son could have been the one that committed this crime as well. And we got to think about that because there's teenagers that might fall for this.
Right.
And then the first person being charged, being a 15-year-old or 14-year-old,
Yeah.
it was like I was very thankful for that. So I was able to explain that. And then I talked about the future as I see it
Mm-hmm.
and what we are facing with cyber crimes, AI, and the big rise that we have and the problems that we have with cell phones in prisons.
Oh yeah.
Which
Well, and
all of the solicitors seem to agree on that.
and that was we tried to tackle that. I think you led that effort in trying to. What did you try to do? A proviso, or
I
did
tried
you,
to do a proviso to allow the Department of Corrections,
The jam.
SCDC, to use cell phone jammers if they
right?
wanted to, which technically it's illegal to even purchase them.
Yeah, and I think Cody Mitchell led that effort against that. Cody, if you're listening, tongue in cheek here.
Yeah. No, Cody questioned me, and I
Yeah.
kept thinking, like, the Freedom Caucus reel where they would no questions, no questions.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not walking away from this. Anybody that wants it, bring it. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I got permission from the chair of Ways and Means over that subcommittee, and I should have walked away at that time, and it would have passed. But me being the freshman and being antagonistic. I'm
process.
like, no, we're going to continue to fight.
Yeah.
Annie McDaniel started questioning me, and then she ruled it non-germane because I didn't have a dollar amount on it. So it was a rookie
that's
mistake.
right. That's
that was
right.
the problem.
Hey, man, I think we had the RJ bill was ruled not germane as well.
Yeah.
But you got to try. It's a learning process. It was man, first year, first.
You got to learn how the
first
process
term.
works.
Yeah. So.
But at least we were willing to sit there and take the questions and battle our views versus the other views.
Yep.
And that's what it's about.
And Cody Mitchell's a colleague of ours out of the Hartsville area.
Yes.
He is an attorney. So I think he just had some legitimate concerns about, how would this infringe on,
Well, he knew that it's unconstitutional. It's against the federal regulation from the 1930s that says that states can't block federal airwaves.
Yeah.
And considering cell phones are considered federal airways, only the federal government can block those airways.
Right. Okay.
So schools can't add cell phone jammers. No one can add cell phone jammers. It's considered interfering with the airwaves. And I can understand the point because you got to think whenever it was written, you had the rise of the, say, Nazi party in Germany. And if you had a government controlling or individual states, so let's just say if we were even back in the Civil War.
Right.
If the state said, we don't want you to hear what the federal government has to say and we want to block these airwaves, that could be a problem.
Yeah, and I think that's what Cody was talking about.
I mean, his points were valid. I just didn't care.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he was asking questions about, isn't this – now, this would be a federal issue, right? I mean, this should be changed on a federal level.
It should be, at least for prisons.
But your frustration, I think, was – with this attempt was demonstrating that nothing is being done on the federal level.
Right. Well, least effective Congress since the Great Depression.
Yeah, correct.
But it's not just that. I mean, you've also got to think that why is it a problem for the other side if we jam cell phone signals, considering they're not supposed to have cell phones and tablets anyway? But if you're charging people $7 a minute to talk to their loved ones through the phone bank system, like some companies getting paid for that, and we all know phone calls are cheaper than ever.
Yeah.
Like, why do we do that? That encourages people to sneak in cell phones.
This reminds me, I mean, this is similar to, wait a minute, why we are trying to define who can vote in our elections.
Right.
Why are you fighting for non-citizens, or voter ID or,
Why be against it if we want to make sure that our elections are only citizens?
Things that make you go, you know. But what else you get? So that was over in Myrtle Beach.
That was Myrtle Beach. Then I drove straight from Myrtle Beach, which, granted, it was like mid-80s.
Oh, yeah.
I got literally sat on the beach for an hour or so one day, and people were still playing in the ocean, so it wasn't cold.
Golly.
And then I went to West Virginia, and I pulled up, and it's like 38 degrees in Charleston, West Virginia. I didn't have a jacket. The only thing I had was like a suit jacket. And that was for a West Virginia school safety conference. So I had to go over to their mall, and their mall, like everyone else's mall, is just trash now.
Seen better days.
The only thing that I could find in there that might have a jacket was Abercrombie. So I bought from Abercrombie.
Yes. I cannot wait to see this jacket.
I got me a puffer jacket that smells like like that teenage cologne that they spray in there.
So you bought Cohen a jacket, that's what you're saying.
Pretty much. I don't think he would wear it. He's like, I don't go with my cowboy boots.
So what did you what'd y'all do at the school safety conference?
That one I was a keynote speaker talking about Gavin's Law and mental health.
Okay. Talk about the educational component of okay.
Which I did that last year. It was I did 2 sessions, which is always tough to do 2 sessions back to back because you almost, especially if you're doing it back to back, you think, oh, well, I covered this already, and you skip over stuff.
Oh, right.
And then like each session's different, but it was effective. Had a lot of people reach out. Actually, West Virginia up there, they don't call it the House of Representatives; they call it the House of Delegates.
Okay.
So one of their House of Delegates members was in there. A senator was in there from West Virginia. And they were talking about they have a revenge porn law, but they don't have anything on sextortion. And they really like the educational component of Gavin's Law.
I was going to ask you, do you know how many states in the country have something similar to what we have here?
We have sextortion laws. I want to say 38 states.
Yeah.
But none of them have the educational component that South Carolina does. So educating local law enforcement and educating the students, I think, is the most important part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And that is because the local law enforcement and them understanding that this, and actually that was at the solicitors conference as well, whereas this primarily used to be overseas, getting them to understand that this is now happening in our prisons thanks to YouTube and TikTok videos, teaching our prisons how to do it. And once these people get out of prison and can't get a job because they got a felony and they can't find a place to live, they think, oh, well, I made $10,000 a week while I was in prison doing this. They continue to do it, and it's becoming street crime or organized crime.
Speaking of jamming services, how are these folks doing? They're just doing it on the internet there from the prison?
No, I mean, they just get cell phones.
Oh, and they're doing all of this from a cell phone.
All of it's being done from a cell phone or tablet. So they are using the apps to spoof the phone numbers. They are using their data within their cell phones. And you can buy these little burner phones all day long and get the unlimited data. It's not the best, but you can operate these apps on them.
Yeah, that's troubling. I think I've talked about this before, my personal issue with giving young kids cell phones.
Yeah.
And when I say cell phones, I'm talking about computers.
Yeah.
These are handheld computers. That's what they are. Let's not misinterpret what you and I grew up with as cell phones were phones. You dialed a number, the person picked up, and you talked to them. What these are now, these are
computers.
Yeah. They're computers. And so I remember my first attempt at trying to get Emma a phone, a flip phone, was a struggle. And then went to my neighborhood Verizon store and asked them about it. I said, hey, do you guys offer a phone that allows phone, text, weather, GPS? They're like, yeah, an iPhone. And I'm like,
no, just that.
I just want some limited, whatever. And she goes, yeah, we don't do that.
Well, they do sell bricks now, is what they call them.
Bricks?
It's called a brick.
The Zach Morris phone type?
But no, it's just like a regular smartphone, but it only has text, phone, no internet capability.
Okay.
So it's just phone and text, GPS.
Well, she now has basically a brick, which is an iPhone, and it is.
I think Verizon actually has one of the first ones.
Yeah.
That they do just for kids, but it's basically a brick phone.
Okay.
So you got phone and text, but even the text is parental controlled.
She has a new iPhone now, so we'll see how it goes. Just in the 2 or 3 weeks that she's had it, it's been a little bit of a maze with parental controls. They do not make that.
It's not easy.
It
should be default, and the parents learn to undo it.
Correct. And I almost think that's by design.
Oh, it is. 1,000%.
Literally.
Because every time you do an update to an app, you've enacted parental controls, it undoes them all.
Correct.
And then you have to go back in and redo it.
Correct. And that's BS, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just, talking about my week, doing some campaigning, doing some knocking on doors and stuff. Emma goes with me a lot of times. That's a lot of times our time on a Saturday or Thursday or whatever it is that we get to walk together, split off, and she'll knock on a door, I'll knock on a door. But just to enable her to use the app that we use, I had to turn off a couple of switches on parental controls just to let her get it on her phone.
And what I used on my kid's phone, which obviously didn't work very well, was the
i360 deal, or
it wasn't it's the Apple family controls.
Oh, so that's what I have.
Well, that's what I was using,
and it's miserable.
But it doesn't stop her from downloading Reddit. It doesn't stop her from downloading X.
So the controls I have do. She can't do a thing.
Well, whenever Gavin had it, because that was one of the problems, he would complain that he had to get permission to go onto a website, but yet he had X and Reddit and all these other things because they don't pop up as adult only.
And this may be the next evolution that just came out in the last year or so, but it is, she cannot put an app on her phone. She can't
without
take
getting permission.
App off. Yeah, there's all those things.
And I've got tons of them. Like if they don't have an age, but for some reason X and Reddit are listed as everyone. Same thing with YouTube, so they can download them.
Yeah, that's another thing. How they categorize social news or whatever will allow certain things through.
Yeah,
so.
And X might be categorized as news instead of social.
It's just one more thing that a parent's got to look out for to protect their kid.
And they just make a change and you don't know, and then all of a sudden they've got access to stuff.
Yeah.
And the average kid's getting a hold of pornography at age 10 now.
Yeah, that's scary, man.
So It's really bad. And that was one of the things at the school safety conference we talked about, some of the studies that were done. If a lady walked into a school just to see the school tablet and watching the YouTube app through her kid, and it was like within 15 minutes, the girl's getting cutting videos, and they're listed as self-improvement or
Really?
something like that, because it's like safe cutting, like teaching the little girls that are watching this in an elementary school how to safely cut themselves.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Well,
The
hey,
beauty of recording outside.
that's right. We haven't even told the two listeners we are actually outside. The weather was just too perfect here in South Carolina.
We're on the Sessions compound. Just kind of moved to the west wing of it.
Yeah, we're poolside, baby. Well, there is the
That motorcycle.
yeah. They have them in this neighborhood too,
I would have never guessed that.
But yeah,
Got to be Kenny Smith.
so you went from Myrtle Beach to West Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big temperature change, and then as soon as I left West Virginia, which it was just for a couple days, had to come back to Kings Mountain to a men's retreat.
Okay.
The men's mission that I always do with
Yep.
the I call it the Chick-fil-A waffle fry, but it's a Crusader's cross that I wear around my neck, and was there for a couple days, and just got back today.
Recharge the battery.
Refocus.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where whenever I first went, I guess it changed me so much that my wife, it'd take 4 months, and she's like, when's the next men's retreat?
Yeah.
And then for a while, it was like getting shorter and shorter, and she's like, okay, you need to get back to the men's retreat.
That's good though, man.
Yeah, just kind of refocus, recenter, and understand what is most important in this world. We get caught up in
I know.
the cycle.
That's why going to church every Sunday
Makes such
is
a
so
big difference.
important.
Yeah.
It's just like maintenance. Like a men's
Keep your focus.
retreat or a revival can sort of bring you back to center, but that every Sunday is just, yeah. It's just,
It makes such a difference in understanding what we're all here for.
I know,
And
man.
ultimately,
And
we
it
fight
is-
over such petty things.
I
Every
was
once
going
in
to
a
say the
while.
same thing. It's just good to sort of get a bird's eye view and get some perspective on
Yeah.
what's important, that sort of thing. And we're, it's Global Missions Month. I don't know if that's every church thing or every denomination thing, but I know in the Baptist faith, October is Global Mission. So we're hearing a lot of things from our stories, testimony from missionaries that we support throughout the year. So it's always good to hear, get perspective. So that's good, man.
What about your previous week? What did you? I mean, I know you were pretty much just in Florida.
Man,
That was your primary.
yeah.
That and door knocking.
It's been a blur, man. With Helene coming through, obviously we talked about that last episode, and then coming right behind it was Milton. So redirecting 160 some odd guys, went down to Florida, helped those communities help clean up, and a lot of what we did there was just getting trees and vegetation cleared out of the way.
So
Yep.
people could safely get their power back on.
That's
and-
right. Yep. So, it's going to be, man, it's probably going to be a 6-month cleanup down there. It's going to be a much longer cleanup for
Asheville.
Western North
Yeah.
Carolina, for sure. We also went and looked up in East Tennessee this week as well. We had some project managers going around helping DOT folks. But to think, just to imagine, they're still searching for people down there.
Yeah.
In North Carolina.
I still think it's going to pass Katrina whenever it's all said and done.
And so, and we have talked about just this political environment that everything gets political really fast. And I know social media does contribute to it, but one thing I would urge our listeners to think about is some of the reason why there's a delay in cleanup efforts is because they're still searching for people. Right? So when cars and boats and houses get swept down along with trees and everything else downriver, they all get at the bottom of wherever they got disposed. They're all in one pile. And you don't want yellow iron, what I call yellow iron excavators or trucks going in just haphazardly.
You want to make sure there's not somebody in there
Yeah,
surviving.
man, that's somebody's loved one.
Yeah.
Who needs to have a proper burial and those types of things. So that has definitely impeded the efforts especially up in the mountains around Burnsville and some other places. But also roads just totally wiped away up there.
Yeah.
And again, there'll probably be a few documentaries on this. Those folks do not have, I would say 80-90% don't have any sort of flood insurance.
Yeah.
Like when their house
And
got
it's
swept
freezing
down,
now.
when their house got swept down the river.
Not planning on flooding if you're sitting on top of a mountain.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, man. There's just going to be a lot.
I mean, you would think it would take like a NOAA event to really affect you flooding.
Correct.
If you're sitting on top of a mountain.
Yeah. So yeah, man, just doing that down in Florida. Got back up late Thursday. I missed the historic Rock Hill. Had an oyster roast.
Missed that as well.
I know, me too. But I got home in time for dinner, and I just told my wife, I said, "Hey, you go ahead and go. I just wanted to enjoy the kids." So
that's been the tough part of all the traveling.
Yeah.
And I'm not usually one that's like, oh, I got to get back to see my kids, but it's been 10 days really since I could see the boys. And then whenever I came back briefly coming from West Virginia and stopped at my house, and I was able to see Callie for, 30 minutes or so.
I know,
But Cohen was gone to Clemson, and it's like I didn't get to see him, and
what is he doing in Clemson?
Well, that's where his girlfriend was going to school. So
that's
he was
right, and they played another preparatory school. I forgot about that.
We're going to wait on football. We'll get there in a minute.
But, yeah, so...
Did you see, our future sheriff, Tony Breeden? We ought to have him back on how he's been trying to organize these efforts with Amanda Riggin and Hungry Heroes.
Yeah.
And Jay Matthews with Matthews Construction. They've been organizing a lot of efforts up there. But Amanda posted a video, and she was just trying to show people. She's like, we were up here at this time. Now we're at this exact same spot, and I want to show y'all. And it was a picture of an 18-wheeler that was just it was just torn to shreds. We're talking about the cab, the tractor, not the trailer.
Yeah.
Just torn to shreds and flattened because it had got washed down, and then all that water's just rushing over it just to show the strength of it.
I know.
And it's just like sitting at the bottom of what looks like used to be a riverbank, but it was never a river to begin with.
Correct. I know and the videos and pictures don't do it justice.
No.
I think I spoke on this last time. I went up to Rutherford and Polk County, Chimney Rock, Lake Lure. Devastating. Looking around at that community. It's going to be a long time.
Yeah.
So
still keep those people in prayers.
For sure.
And then last week, something I didn't touch on that I did so I've been fighting to try to get the Kids Online Safety Act passed on a federal level, working with a few different groups. I recorded the radio ads to play in Louisiana because that's where Speaker Johnson and Scalise are trying to get them.
Is that just to raise the awareness on the issue?
Well, they're not wanting to bring it to the floor.
Because they don't have the votes?
Because they're getting paid, is my point of view.
Getting paid by
big tech. Big tech's feeding their groups to protect their people, and that's the reason they don't want to take it up.
Okay, so they're getting political donations for...
Maybe not directly, but getting them through their organizations.
Okay, gotcha.
If Tad started something and, just to kind of poke fun if he called it, the Rhino Republicans group and wants to donate a bunch of money, and you're part of the group, you could say, oh, well, give all my money to this group.
Oh, so they've got PACs or something.
But they can give unlimited amounts to those PACs. So they could donate $1 million, and then he could pay for door knockers, mailers, all this other stuff. That becomes the issue. So
I think that's what our colleague Neil Collins ran into when he was running against
that's exactly where the money come from.
Caucus.
Yep, out of Texas. And so I started, we had articles come out in Wall Street Journal. Well, I don't know if Wall Street's printed yet, but they called me about it, and I've been screaming this for 6 months.
Yeah.
But Bloomberg definitely come out, pointing that out, how the money's going to the Freedom Caucus groups and how they're using it to pay to take over these state parties instead of focusing on what's going on the federal level.
Right.
I was glad to see that called out. But so now I've got to go.
Wait a minute, that happens on state level and local county level.
Well, the problem is unless I posted something the other day and said whenever the swamp fighters become the swamp, you have the federal group.
Mm-hmm.
Their focus is to stop something on a federal level, so therefore they can get the money to their groups to then feed their state groups to replace Republicans because they're not part of their club. So they can get in there and control the narrative. And then you got those clubs using that money for people like Neil Collins spending over $100,000 just
Right.
on door knockers. Meanwhile, on the state level, they're sitting here crying, "Oh God, the swamp is against me." Like, you've got the federal system coming back. I mean, the House Republican caucus on the federal level has never done anything for me. You know what I mean? And it is close to $1 billion that's coming and going and then being spread out amongst these states. And that is the frustrating part, and is to continue to spread false narratives
You know,
to get in power.
this reminds me of, I had for the two listeners out there, I studied history and was a Southern Studies minor at the Premier Institute of Higher Education in South Carolina, the University of South Carolina. And I had a great professor named Walter Edgar, and he always said, in any conflict that you see throughout history, it's between who has the power and who wants it. And that's always stuck with me. And who has the power is the traditional party system,
Right.
Whether it's Republican, Democrat,
Which finally
on a
they
national
do.
level or on a state level or even local level. And then there's going to be these third-party groups who,
Whether it was Tea Party or whatever.
or in the
group
case of the
yeah.
Freedom Caucus, it's very well funded. There are some well-funded folks out there.
Who want that power?
Correct. And so for me, it comes down to this: elect officials and elect people to represent you who put that public service before their personal,
Right.
right? And that's it. That's
That's
just
one of the things I've added in my presentation is politicians worry about the next election.
Correct.
Leaders worry about the next generation.
and
And I'm sick and tired of watching politicians, people that I thought were leaders, but my eyes are being opened, especially on the federal level, of how they are truly just politicians.
right,
And that becomes very frustrating.
and not a leader.
Hey.
All right, good time to break. What's up, buddy?
All right, so we're back from break. I just want to touch up on one more thing before we leave.
Yep, and just for the two listeners, you may hear some intermittent distraction. My middle son, or my middle child, Ben, has decided to join us, and he is sitting there in the producer chair, got the headset on and everything. So if he decides to interject, hey man, we're gonna roll with it.
Oh yeah.
But what you got going on?
But so I did the radio interview with evidently the guy supposed to be the Rush Limbaugh of Louisiana
Okay.
politics down. I did a radio interview there week before last, and then this week, coming week, I got to fly out to Louisiana for a press conference. So we're trying to combat that and get the information out. So I'm flying straight into New Orleans,
Right.
doing a podcast. Actually, the CEO of CyberDive is going to meet me there because we were supposed to meet in Charlotte and go over
Oh wow.
some details with the new app.
So where are you heading into?
I guess I don't know. I didn't plan it.
Oh,
So
okay.
I know I'm going to New Orleans right there at French Quarter,
Okay.
and we're doing the presentation or doing
Okay,
the press
gotcha.
conference.
I didn't
there.
know if you were doing a press conference like on the State House steps over there, or are you going to Mike Johnson's district or what?
Well, I mean, I think it is Scalise and Johnson's
Okay.
area that we're going to be in, but the big thing, and we've reached out to the Robertsons from Duck Dynasty, some of the church
really?
groups, and some of the biggest donors to Johnson and Scalise throughout Louisiana, and getting them to understand the importance of just getting this bill to move forward.
Right. Have y'all had any direct conversations with Scalise or Johnson or
I
staff?
haven't.
Or
I've tried.
Okay.
That was one of the questions that was on the radio show, but I mean, tried to, but no luck.
Yeah.
Staff, we can, but staff's going to make the decision, but ultimately that's going to be more of a caucus decision. 'Cause
Yeah.
my belief is he's trying to protect the caucus.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to figure out, like in my head, like as you're talking of, some of these issues, when it comes to, let's take for instance the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
So that was at the time,
Something that was needed.
right? But when you have these safety issues, a lot of times you have to balance out freedom of expression and some of those other rights.
We want data privacy for adults.
Right. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, try to get inside the leaders on a federal level in their head of what they're dealing with, what's what's going on in coupled with some of their interests long term, not just short term, but also long term, as far as what are they trying to achieve by not giving this thing a hearing.
Well, it's funny. Every
not
time we do a
bringing this
push, Meta or someone offers these
concessions.
solutions and these concessions, and they, like this week they came out. I think I told you last time they made some improvements. I was asked for a quote, and I said it's kind of like whenever your dog craps on the porch instead of crapping in your house. Like you're a little happy,
still
but it's not
stinks.
exactly what you want.
You can still smell it.
You still got to be careful where you step at, right? And then they did another one. They come out and just released that they are doing videos to educate the teens on sextortion online, but yet they are still allowing these predators to contact our kids.
Yeah, right.
And they have the ability to stop it, and that becomes the issue. And that came from the court ruling. So the courts come out and said that these companies can be sued. And that was a big step on challenging Section 230.
Yeah.
So as soon as that happened, they come right back out.
Yeah. Well,
And-
sounds like Ben has a future
That
here.
kind of leads me into
broadcasting.
something that I know we were going to move on to another subject, but that leads into the situations going on with TikTok right now.
Oh yeah, let's just go ahead and dig
Yeah.
into that.
So TikTok, we had 14 attorney generals have filed lawsuits against them, showing in TikTok,
And I think Alan Wilson.
Yeah, he's
our
one
general-
of them.
Yep.
And within the lawsuits, it states things such as they are allowing teens to get paid for stripping on TikTok. Not to mention the algorithms and all the other issues that they have going on. Well, with these lawsuits came NPR trying to do a study on what the lawsuits were about. Well, they get the information, and of course, a lot of the information is redacted. But then the redaction, or NPR, whenever they copied and pasted the information, the redactions disappeared.
So wait a minute. They did in the pursuit of this story on the issue that the attorney general's bringing this suit against TikTok. They did some FOIAs, got some
Information that would have redacted information, which most of our government does.
right.
But whenever they found out they copied and pasted it, the redactions disappeared.
Wow.
So someone dropped the ball pretty big time.
Wow.
As they got that, well, now the story has come
And so
out.
what has been some of the redacted info?
And I don't have the exact information.
Okay.
But the big story that come out, and it came out with talking about Mitch McConnell. And what it was saying was essentially, it says Kentucky creators to sway Senator Mitch McConnell. So it is essentially saying that TikTok went to these congressional members which is what I think is happening with Meta and everyone else,
Right.
and telling them what is most important to you. So we're going to not only promote you, but these are your biggest donors or these are your biggest supporters in the area. We're going to promote them as well and make them come up. That way they can turn around and give you more money instead of us ever having to pay you to begin with.
Right.
And you're going to kill this. So the whole bid on stopping TikTok all of a sudden disappeared, but now it's showing up and it's showing how corrupt. And so I posted, that's what I was talking about whenever the swamp fighters become the swamp.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing with that Freedom Caucus.
I mean, this sounds like this is reminiscent of the influence mechanisms that we heard about during the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to get into all that, but when I hear folks say, I think J.D. Vance always gets this question about who won the 2020 election, and he says, "Listen, clearly, the declared winner is sitting in the White House, but that doesn't mean that there was some influence
That it was a fair election.
right prior to the election.
And these companies can
And
sway an issue 20%.
That does not make you a conspiracy theorist. It
No.
doesn't make you a wacko. Folks, if you want to hear about some of the influence that was going on prior to the 2020 election, I was just listening to Joe Rogan had a guy on, about 2 weeks ago. Last name is Epstein, no relation. to Bill Clinton's friend, but
You just promoting your friends, the Epsteins, aren't you?
but yeah, I mean, but this guy talked about, he measured it, and again, don't take my word for it. Just go listen to the interview. But this guy is an expert in the field. He talks about how the Robert Epstein, it's episode 2201, but he talks about all of the influence of tech companies prior to that election. And it's just interesting.
Well, I mean, even Mark Zuckerberg wrote a letter to Congress, which I think he wrote the letter to Congress trying to sway the Republicans. Hey, if you don't bring up Kids Online Safety Act, then I will go ahead and release this information, which will be damning towards the Democrats, of stating how the Biden administration essentially scared me into saying that everything is false information.
Yeah.
I mean, and he wrote that publicly, and that was released. I think Jim Jordan is the one who read the letter, or that's who he wrote it to, which is the chair of the committee. But whenever something like that happens, and all of a sudden it's almost that mentality of I'm willing to cheat and win so long as it benefits me,
right?
Instead of standing up for what is really right.
It is, all of these things are reminiscent to me when I hear of this concerted effort to, whether it's influence elections or whether it's, it just reminds me of the Sackler family and opioids.
Yeah.
It just does.
But this is far bigger.
Correct.
This is big tobacco.
Well, it seems widespread, but it's just this corporate takeover.
This might be big tobacco and big pharma
of
together.
Government agencies that are there to represent our interests and oversee to make sure certain industries are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Whether it's food and drug, whether it's NIH, whether it's
medical,
Federal Elections Commission, whatever it is. It just seems like the more and more we dig in and hear about some of these tales that people are telling, I'm like, oh, golly, man, really? So we'll see. That's troubling.
And the age of, we all thought we'd be smarter whenever the internet came out. The problem is we never counted on having so much misinformation or intentional disinformation.
Right.
Just because people can get
or what some call misinformation at the time.
That isn't.
Right. I mean,
that's the gaslighting.
Dewormer.
Yeah.
That whole thing. It's like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a drug that the folks who created this drug won the Nobel Prize for medicine, and this thing's been on the market for decades.
Well, I mean,
all of a sudden,
I had one of the people that came at me whenever I got diagnosed with COVID, and they were like, "Well, I've got some ivermectin if you want some." And I was like, "I'm not taking no horse dewormer." Like,
seriously?
But it's because I didn't really study what was. I wasn't taking anything. To me, it was like a cold. I'll get over it.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna make it through it. But it was like I'm just buying into whatever's being said on the news. Like there's so much information out there. You cannot sit there and disseminate everything.
That is true. It's hard to determine.
And I understand it's very important for some people because they might have lost their career or, they really fought hard for this. And that's the way I feel whenever I'm talking about tech issues. People are not listening. And I'm like, but you don't understand. This is the most important issue of our generation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, to hear of these accomplished, whether it's Stanford-educated doctors or Peter McCullough or who was the other guy, Malone, just get totally ran through the mud. And then and now to come to find out some of these
Fauci was getting paid.
Yep. To find out some of these New England Journal of Medicines or JAMA, some of these medical journals that you used to hold in regard are just,
Well, that's what I found with the big tech. I mean, the whole Glenn Beck. Like, I always thought, like, if he's saying it, then he's being honest and speaking it from his heart. But I watched that disinformation campaign come out by trying to state that we're taking away people's personal privacy rights on COSA, and COSA only applies to children. And really it's not even children. It's 16 and under. Like, I disagree. I think the bill should be 18 and under. But for some reason, they want to define what a child is at that age.
And you're saying because minors don't have legal rights anyway, they're not recognized?
Well, I'm not saying that they're not recognized. I'm saying that the parent is in charge.
Right.
And the parents should be able to control and have access to that data, and these companies not be able to push pornography and their agenda and use their algorithms on my child to corrupt their mind for
Correct.
them to say that, oh, well, we should all get the shot. You're an idiot because you didn't know what you're talking about, like talking to their parents, because only information they're getting is whatever that information is being pushed out to them.
Literally, you're talking about digital mind control.
Right. It's just
I mean,
propaganda times 200.
Correct.
Yeah, and COSA says that you can't use algorithms on anyone under the age of 16.
Well, and to be honest, we're we're all in our own echo chambers. I mean, literally, these computers make it so.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why.
You have to intentionally look up both sides
Correct.
if you don't want to end up in a rabbit hole.
Correct. And I always wonder what the algorithms sort of think of my searching, because I'll listen to NPR, I'll listen to Fox News, or everything in between. I tend to like
They
Joe
typically
Rogan
term it like there's little tags, so they give you a tag. Yours just says Rhino.
That's right.
No. But yeah, I mean, if to me, Joe Rogan is a middle of the road guy.
Yeah.
Like he's
I would
typically
say he's left of center.
Well,
right?
and a lot of the social issues, yeah.
Yeah.
But to some now, he's considered alt-right. And it's
Right.
like, this is a guy who
I mean,
was
literally,
Bernie Sanders last election, you know?
So let's segue over. We were talking about, I know you don't have an opponent in the November general election, but I do, and so I'm knocking doors and doing those things, and I enjoy it because you have conversations. It's an
Yeah.
opportunity to get to talk to people, and one person that I was talking to, they said, "Oh, you're Republican, I'm voting for you," and I said, "Okay, great," and I said, "But why?" And they're like, "Well, I mean, if you're conservative and you're part of that party," and I said, "Well," I said, "I appreciate your support." I said, "But," I said, "I'm not a typical politician. I never intended
Yeah.
to run. I don't intend on doing anything other than what I'm doing in the House, and I enjoy it." And I said, "But it's a wacko, bizarro universe we're living in when
You just choose party.
I'm just speaking to the National Republican Party is the party of protecting our border, keeping boys out of girls' bathrooms, and not, well, I wouldn't even say not running up a huge national debt, but because in previous,
Oh, we have.
we
Clinton was the last to balance the budget, which is sad to say.
but with the current candidate in Trump, running on no foreign wars, he wants to.
Yeah. And we're the party of the poorest, whereas we didn't used to be.
What a role reversal.
Yeah.
That has become since the 80s Republicans.
Yeah.
That used to be, again.
And the wealthiest companies in the world are supporting the Democratic Party.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it is just a unique time for folks like you and I,
Well, and that's
with our public hats on as elected officials.
But that's the reason I get so mad. I call it like gang warfare. Are you carrying a red flag or a blue flag?
I know.
And those parties can change dramatically,
Oh yeah.
And I've always felt like the Republicans are more of the social conservative
Yeah.
issues. But I also always thought that they were more fiscally conservative, but I also thought they were taking care of their big donors and everything else.
Right.
And it wasn't, I think 2020 was the first election that I voted 100% like straight ticket. Now, I refuse to vote straight ticket.
You just go.
I
through
choose the
individual
candidates.
races, right?
But it was the first race that I voted everything Republican Party because I couldn't vote for Romney.
Yeah.
I was voting for the Libertarian candidate. I couldn't vote for Romney.
Yeah. I don't think I did that.
And
in
whenever it comes
2016.
to city elections, whether they're partisan or nonpartisan, we still know whether someone's kind of Republican or Democrat.
Right.
Sometimes I might have supported more of the Democratic candidate than the Republican candidate because that Democrat had more experience in running a city,
So
and it wasn't just about
correct.
public policy.
Well, and here in York County, we had John Spratt.
Yeah.
For a long, long time, and John Spratt was what folks would probably today call a moderate Republican, but back in the day, he was a blue dog Democrat.
Yeah, but by the time the end of his career, he
Nope.
was.
By the end of his career,
Yeah.
I remember I shot him an email and I said, "Hey, look, if Obamacare, that was the issue of the time."
Yeah.
And I remember I shot an email to him, and I think I said, "Just please don't vote for this. If we want to fix the healthcare issues, I'm with you, but this isn't the way to do it, right? If we want a government single payer solution, just take away the age requirement, right? I mean, we have Medicare. Take away the age requirement, and you have a single payer system already. And it was simple. That's all you had to do. Problem was, that's not what Obamacare was.
During that time period, I was not paying a bit of
was
attention to politics.
Well, and again, we don't have to go into Obamacare, but basically, it was making everyone go and buy health insurance.
Right. Which then
And-
they can charge whatever they want.
Well, and then you start then
Government subsidizes
Well,
it.
and then folks who are making good health choices, get pulled in with people who are making bad health choices, and so you take.
You got to pay my smoker rate.
And so it just, and again, these discussions are ongoing. I mean,
Well, I had that argument whenever I
this
worked.
was not solved back by Obamacare, right?
It was, and even before Obamacare, whenever I was working for a company.
Speaking of liquor liability, same thing.
Yeah.
Liquor liability. Hey, the bad
Let's
actors
lump
in the
everyone
bar and
together.
restaurant- Yeah, right. Restaurant business get pulled in with the same folks who don't have any claims against them, and then the good actors have to pay for the bad actors, and it's like, wait a minute,
We have to stop that.
That's not right.
I
So-
remember whenever I was doing advertising, and I had good insurance in. I mean, I'd pay $400 or $500 a month for my entire family.
God.
I mean, that was before Obamacare, and then it almost doubled within a couple of years. It went from that to about $1,100 to eventually the
I'm about to say
company
that
said,
it's tripled.
"We're getting out of insurance because we can't afford to offer this as a benefit anymore."
Yeah.
And you can go to the employer marketplace or you can go get your own insurance, but we're not offering it anymore. It's gotten too expensive for us. But I remember having the argument because they were charging me more, a higher rate. Now, granted, I was a smoker, but there
Yeah.
were probably, there was more than a handful just within my office, not to count the national office, of people that just needed to put the cookie down instead of put the cigarette down, and they were paying a lower rate than me. And I'm like, look, they've got more of a chance of dying
They've been
than me.
diabetic since they were
Yeah,
8.
but I remember having that argument. My boss was like, "You need to come in my office. Like, you can't say these things." I'm like, "What? Like, she needs to put the cookie down worse than I need to put the cigarette down. Why am I paying more?"
Correct. Well, and I think Robert Kennedy said, the federal government, I think there is, I know what it is, Ozempic. Talking about
The diabetic.
putting that,
medicine.
well, yeah, but putting that on as eligible for, I think it's Medicare and Medicaid, right? And he said, we're going to go pay $15,000, $2,000, whatever it is, dollars for this stuff. And the government's going to subsidize it basically.
Right.
For this Danish company, I think the folks who make Ozempic is a Danish company. It's going to be approved where our government will subsidize and pay for that for folks who need it. Now, Denmark, the home country for Ozempic, will not do that. And there's a reason why.
Right. Because they're going to mark it up.
Now, no. I'm just saying because
They just pay our politicians better than Denmark does.
No. It's because they don't need it. The root cause analysis, the Danish people have not, the Danish government has not been co-opted yet. What they recommended was instead of Ozempic, start eating better. Maybe a little bit of exercise.
Why American food stuff?
And it's like,
yeah.
no shit. I mean, I don't know what has happened to folks in our country when it comes to, dude, if you're borderline diabetic, man, yeah, like you said, put the cookie down.
Yeah.
Stop drinking a 12-pack of Diet Pepsi.
Well, and why do we have certain things that are approved in our food here
Oh,
that
right.
the majority of the country doesn't even allow
No,
to be
the
in their
majority
foods?
of the globe.
Yeah.
So like
Not the country. I meant the globe.
Yeah. Europe, Asia,
Yeah.
all these other countries.
They're like, yeah, we're not putting that in there.
You can't use those additives. You can't
You're
use
making
those
me want a cigarette
chemicals.
now.
Speaking of healthy choices.
Yeah. First time smoking on camera. We'll
But
do
yeah,
some Marlboro Man.
hey, I'm telling you. So, and you know, we can segue over into the national politics of the day, but
It's all well. I mean, I use this on even food stamps. You know, whenever I was young, teenage mom, there was a time. Now it was shameful to be
Wait a
on
minute.
food stamps.
You were a teenage mom?
No, no, my mom was.
Okay. You're in a hurry.
Yeah. But anyway, so as my mom was on food stamps, she worked 3 jobs,
Mhm.
and it was shameful to be on food stamps. So you worked to try and get off of it.
Right.
But we could use the food stamps, and I always say one of the reasons I think I'm addicted to soda, like Mountain Dew, the way I am, because every time I went to someone's house that had sodas, I was like, oh man, they're rich.
That's a luxury.
Yeah, because it was like the only sugary drink I could get was maybe a tea or
I'll
a
say sweet tea.
Kool-Aid, but you couldn't even buy the Kool-Aid brand.
Purple drink.
You had to buy the Community Cash brand or whatever
That's
it
right.
was at the time to make it. And I remember even like the Fun Dips. Like the kids would get those little
Oh, yeah.
candy sticks and dip it in there. No.
Packets of colored sugar.
Yeah, no, I would take a packet of off-brand Kool-Aid
Yeah, yeah.
and add a little bit of sugar to it, shake it up, lick my finger, and stick it in there. You know,
Same. Yeah.
But it was a sign of wealth. Well, now people can go in because we've said no. Oh, it's your right to be able to do this. And now if you say, oh, someone on food stamps buying steak and lobster, it's like, oh, you're heartless. It's like, no, I'm not heartless. But if you're using a backstop for the government, it should be a backstop, not a crutch to begin with. And if you're using that, then it should be limited. But yet you got the big lobby of, let's say, PepsiCo says, oh, no, we want to push Mountain Dew. We want you to have these people.
Hey, so think about what you just said there. Like Pepsi wants to be, eligible
Yeah.
for food stamps, right?
And now they
That's
charge
what
$3.
That's what Ozempic's
Yeah.
doing right now.
They charge $3 for a
They
Mountain
want
Dew in the
They want to
store.
be eligible for that federal dollar.
Yeah, and they get that money.
They want that
Well,
federal guarantee.
now you got a bunch of people overweight, too much sugar, diabetes, and then we're saying we can't afford the health care. So the government comes in and says, oh, we'll subsidize that. It's just one lobby to another
Well,
and pushing what is going to make their company stronger, but getting taxpayer dollars is not a responsible way of trying to
no,
lead
not
the
at all.
people.
Not at all. And that's what I really appreciate about Robert Kennedy. His message just appealed to me from especially for the health aspect of what he's really about. And he even brought it up. He said it would be cheaper for the federal government to subsidize 3 organic meals a day for every recipient than to pay for those drugs.
Than to pay for Ozempic.
Yes. And guess what? We're not going to do it.
But the organic farmers aren't going to get together to
Hey.
lobby Congress to do that.
That's right. Hey, y'all organic farmers out there, PSA for the episode, y'all need to get a better lobbyist.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Actually stick to truly being organic too.
Well,
instead of making it look like it's.
That's
Don't
true.
put organic in the name of your product and not really be organic.
That's true. I mean, because that is now like a marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I've
For
been
sure.
eating instead of Pringles, I've been eating the organic veggie chips.
Yeah.
Just feeling like I'm healthy, but man, I'm gaining weight. Like I can't.
So I challenge my wife and I talk about this all the time. Real food,
Yeah,
right? When you go to eat, don't undo a wrapper. See how hard that is.
Tad was actually telling us a story, or telling me a story before he came in. His mother-in-law's in town, and I hope you're okay with me sharing this. But just to share the difference of the
Hey,
food
if you're
that we
not,
eat,
just cut it.
yeah, the food that we eat versus eating more organic was, his wife's from upstate New York, and they're going to make this pasta sauce. Well, they use real tomatoes in making it.
Right.
And
Tomatoes, garlic.
just the acidity of the tomatoes and stuff, like burned his mouth. And he's like,
Oh.
compared to using like a Prego or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, just because we're not used to real food. It's that processed food that we get.
Right. Yeah. All right. All right, man. Oh, we're gonna. It's been a while. We're just like shotgunning.
Yeah, we've been off the cuff,
talking
yeah.
about a whole bunch of stuff. You want to talk about a little bit of football?
We got to talk about football.
Let's talk about Clemson and the preparatory academy out of the
Oh,
University
come
of
on
Virginia.
I mean, the game looks closer on paper than it actually was.
Yeah, I know. It was like 10-10.
It was, but there was.
So this is
Right.
funny. I'm literally knocking on a door and I hear, yeah! And the guy comes to the door. Clemson had just scored to go up 17-10. And I said, well, I mean, I am a Gamecock grad, but eat your sport in November, would you?
Well, they so Clemson playing Virginia. There was some bad calls, especially one where there was clear face mask on Virginia, and they called it on Clemson, didn't reverse it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, so like LSU bad.
yeah, LSU bad.
Good that it didn't determine the
Not
outcome.
to mention 3 or 4 offsides on third down. Like just some bad issues, and we were without Bryant Wesco, our top receiver, as well. But Klubnik still put up
What'd he do?
308 yards.
What happened? Why was he out? He got suspended for being out late?
No, we're talking Clemson, not Georgia. I don't know.
Shenanigans?
I don't remember why
What?
he was out. He was just out.
Academic probation.
Yeah. But
Interim reports came in.
not Georgia. We're talking Clemson. The correctional facility did not have to stand on the sideline while you played. Or that was the Gamecocks in the 90s, too.
Listen, I don't think
Right.
we claim the SEC as the academic powerhouse.
No, I mean, Clemson clearly has the most graduates of
Yeah.
any of the colleges. So there's no question about that. But no, Clemson ended up pulling it out 48-31. Klubnik put up
Yeah.
over 300 yards, another 3
He's getting into a
touchdowns.
groove, man.
And we were putting in our second team.
Right.
I mean, it started to get out of hand quick. So it was Klubnik is looking real good. Maffa, another 2-touchdown game. I mean, he is built like a pro running back.
Yeah.
He really is.
Can withstand the grind of.
I think he can. I
Yeah.
mean, like no disrespect to Shipley, but Shipley was more of that. Reminds me of like a New England Patriot running back that's going to be used kind of as an H-back
Sparingly.
catching. Yeah.
Yeah, sharing the backfield.
I mean, even C.J. Spiller, I never saw him as a every down back.
Yeah. Whatever
You
happened
know.
to Shipley? Is he still playing or?
He got drafted. I think he's a backup running back for the Giants now.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
he's
he
in
did
the
get
NFL.
drafted.
Gotcha.
But, you know, I think that Maffa is one of those guys that just has that build that will continue.
Yeah.
I mean, I was worried about ETN being able to hold up in the NFL, and he's done pretty good. But
Yeah.
Maffa, I think, has that build. And then, of course, you know, we've got our speed guy in Williams, and he showed his speed on a couple of those plays. But Clemson, you know, we weren't expecting to lose that game. I wouldn't say, but it's going to be a good one as we continue to move forward. I think we're steamrolling ahead.
Yeah. So who is Clemson playing next week? Do
Oh,
y'all
man,
have?
I got to look at that up.
I mean, it's probably going to be. So y'all don't have Miami? So,
No, we'll probably get them in the ACC championship.
Yeah, because they.
I would imagine they're still undefeated. Every
Yeah.
game's close. Like
I
their
know.
defense has got to be bad.
It is. It is. It's Cam
But their
Newton, that
offense-
offense.
yeah.
If they get the ball last, you know, because they snuck out the win against Virginia Tech. The Louisville game.
We've got Louisville next, and then we've got Virginia Tech after
Ooh.
that.
Clemson, Louisville next weekend.
Yep. And then
Okay.
we've got number 19 Pittsburgh after that.
Okay, good deal.
And then we get a Citadel. We get a break before we
Yeah.
face off against the
So we-
Gamecocks. And I think the Gamecocks was going to be.
Yeah.
They seem to be improving and getting better.
Well, if you think about it, we're 4-3 with the victory against Oklahoma, but
LSU, you were robbed.
we could have easily been
You could have beat Alabama.
correct.
Very close.
So being 4-3, we could have been 5-2.
Yeah.
You know, taking a flip of the coin, you win one, you lose one. Give us either one. I think the LSU game, I would lay a bigger claim that we could have won that game versus the Alabama game. Not to say that we weren't in it or out of it, but the refs had some say in that outcome. But man, it would have been awesome. The
I
only
mean,
game,
Bama's not looking that strong anymore.
the only game that I thought that we were out of was the Ole Miss game. You know, and even at half, I think it was like 14-3.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know.
But didn't your quarterback go? No, that was LSU.
That was LSU. But
Yeah.
every now and again, your team, even if it's
not going to show up.
yeah, they just have those sleepy games. That's what sort of that game reminded me of. It would be awesome to be 6-1, but we're
Well,
not.
And the Gamecocks, well, they've got a good, strong front seven.
Yeah.
It's the 4 in the secondary that are the weak spot, and
Well-
you're going up against Ole Miss, which has a gunslinger too.
Well, and I'll also say we had a lot of returners this year, so I hope we're taking advantage of when we do get and I'm not saying the powder puff games, but you know what I mean. You have those weaker opponents. Those folks, those young kids, better be getting some experience.
Take advantage
because
of them.
We're going to have a lot of, I think, graduating seniors and folks leaving. So,
Well, and Gamecocks typically have a lot of injuries.
yeah, well, last year, case in
Not,
point.
not just last year. Every year it seems like
Well-
you always go down. Last year y'all didn't even have a receiver that was healthy, did you? I mean, y'all were putting this like whenever the Patriots DBs went down, they had
Wells was on-
Edelman playing
yeah,
cornerback.
Juice Wells was on that layaway program where he was injured and then went to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
but yeah. So, case in point, I think y'all are getting into some of the tougher part of your schedule, whereas we, not to say it's weaker, but we've already had the LSU's, we've already had the Alabamas, we've already had Oklahoma.
You're steamrolling ahead, getting a little bit into your weaker part.
We got to buy. We still have A&M, which I think is about 14th in the country now with their victory, and then we have Missouri. And man, I tell you, Missouri is.
They're just one that finds a way to win.
I know, but what does that say about a team? Whether it's Auburn or whether it's Texas, it seems like, and Missouri hasn't played Texas yet. I'm being hyperbolic here, but it does seem to be they get in these tight ball games, but they win.
But that's Miami.
They win
Every game with Miami's been
and so that
tight.
That shows the character of those athletes.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to our game against Oklahoma. So I didn't get the catch. Being honest with the two listeners, I didn't catch one lick of this on TV.
I didn't either. I was at the men's retreat, but I'd watched the highlights.
Yeah, I was knocking doors. So we had the Miracle League game with our boys. Got everybody back home, and then went out and door knocked for about 5-6 hours. And so I caught it on the radio and, in my pocket as I was going door to door. But, I wasn't even paying attention. But the first time I looked up on my phone, and it was 21-0. And that defense, man, lights out.
Is Harbor involved in the offense now?
Yeah.
Or is he just pretty much on the bench?
He had that late touchdown against Alabama. That was him who caught that bomb right at the side, got his feet down. They initially called that it was out. But yeah, I think he's coming around.
I'm not a rabid football fan like I once was.
I know, me neither. Kids.
So it's like, it's like I feel like there's other important things to deal with, 100%. And if I catch it, I catch it.
100%.
Yeah.
I feel like we're playing like a 3:30 or like a 4 o'clock college game. Where the first half is under the sun, and then the stadium lights come on. Tad has had to adjust the the overhead lights, but so yeah, we got past Oklahoma, defensive dominated that game. Offense still looking for an identity, I think.
Young.
I mean, Sellers,
young.
I think he had a workman-like game. I think he was 16 of 24 for 175 and a TD. But the key to that stat line, no turnovers.
But can Sellers, and this has always been my question with Sellers, will he always be he's so athletically gifted.
Yeah.
Will he ever, does he have the ability to comprehend a complex game plan, and can he operate the offense? Does he put in that work? And I don't know.
Yeah,
So I'm just raising the question. But with statistics like that, it tells me if somebody that runs more of a simplistic offense, and like that's considered a good game.
Yeah.
But it's more of a simplistic offense that you're running instead of having those big breakaway plays, because that typically comes from a complex playbook.
Well, so, he made a big throw to Simon yesterday for a long touchdown. I mean, I think it was
he's definitely got the
35.
ability. It's just mentally, can he handle the playbook and read the defenses?
Yeah.
And he's young.
And I would say, and this is his first full year playing.
I mean, he's a freshman redshirt.
Correct. And so he reminds me a little bit of, he doesn't, like a Lamar Jackson. Man, Lamar Jackson was dynamic once he got into his groove at Louisville, in the sense that he was able to take what the defense gives him. And so,
see, I see him more of as a Jameis Winston. He's got the talent.
Oh no,
but Jameis Winston in college, Florida State.
Yeah, he was. But Jameis Winston to me was more.
But he's got to build more like a Jameis Winston. So would you say more like a Cam Newton?
Oh, I don't mean in build. I just mean in his game, in the sense of he can throw Sellers has in his toolbox. Man, he can throw it or he can run it. I think his challenge is trusting that line to give him enough time where he can get to that second or third read.
Or trusting to get the ball to the running back's hand instead of him keeping it.
Yeah. And then that's when the turnovers come.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that costly one against Alabama.
He's so used to being the star and not relying on everyone else.
And he is
But
young.
he was a man against boys
he's
in
real,
high school.
He's young. He's fresh. So let's give him some time. I don't know, man. I'm hopeful that we can – if we can win – jeez. I don't know. I'm hopeful that we run the table.
I think you can win out until Clemson.
I don't know about that. I mean,
we got
A&M
A&M and Missouri.
A&M, Missouri, and y'all.
Yeah.
But if we won 2 out of the 3 and won every – I mean,
Well, I
going
mean,
to the
you
season
take the
9-4.
Clemson one off the table. That one's not going to happen.
Are we playing
That's in
against,
Death Valley.
Are we playing against y'all in your place?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
you're in Death
baby.
Valley. Yeah, I mean, Rod Gardner 2.0, here we come.
No,
It's not
boy.
going to happen.
You know when you say Rod Gardner, you're talking about the push-off, right?
Oh, I know.
Okay.
Oh, I
mean,
know.
it was
It's clearly a
illegal.
push-off.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't care. Back then, I had the mindset of win at all costs.
Yeah. and I'll have to check my stats, but I'm pretty sure that was at our place too.
No, that was in Clemson.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. 'Cause I'm pretty sure I was delivering pizzas whenever that happened.
Bunch of damn cheaters, man. But yeah, so South Carolina has the bye week before they go. Then we welcome the Aggies at A&M, and that's going to be a night game, baby.
You're going
So,
to my
I am.
wife loves the Gamecock night games.
I am going to go to
Yeah.
that one. Looking forward to it.
I didn't buy tickets. You know, Clemson, we don't get to buy tickets like that
Oh, right.
the same way.
Yeah.
So you can request tickets, but you don't get the opportunity. And the tickets often cost more than what you could get on
I know.
StubHub.
I know.
Like,
Yeah.
It's very odd,
Yeah.
but they do have a tailgate that you can attend and all that good stuff.
So upcoming this week, I'll watch a Clemson game. It sounds like no SC game, and I tell you, this playoff picture is really shaping up to be nice. With Georgia beating Texas, I mean, I think every SEC team.
Well, you're still going to have the
has
SEC
at least-
championship and
I know,
an
at least
ACC
has a one
championship.
loss. So I mean, whether
Yeah.
it's Texas, Alabama's now
But let's
2
say,
loss.
but let's say Clemson and Miami's in the ACC championship. One of them could lose and still both make it into the playoff.
yeah,
Same thing with SEC.
yeah, it's true. LSU right now in the West, I gotta just do a quick.
They're not playoff quality.
Who?
LSU.
I don't know. Right now, they're undefeated in the conference. But now, again, they're going to have to
Yeah.
face does LSU play Texas? I don't know. But eventually,
Texas, Georgia.
I mean, I would say out West, even though Bama's got 2 losses right now, you still have Bama, you have LSU, you have Texas. And I would say A&M, outlier, out West, right? The East, Georgia, Tennessee. Right
yeah,
now,
I mean, Georgia, Tennessee, it's a
strong.
good one.
I mean, Georgia both 1-loss teams right now. So I think Georgia and Tennessee will be in the top
Who
10.
beat Georgia?
Alabama
Oh, yeah.
in that
Ouch.
wild game
Yeah.
in Tuscaloosa.
They almost come back and won.
That's right. So yeah, man, it's going to be. But hell, I mean,
And
dude,
Alabama really, I mean,
we're only
truth-
7 games in.
Alabama lost, and then they should have lost to South Carolina, and then they lost again.
Yeah,
Like, you could tell that mojo's gone. They gained that mojo after Georgia, and
Well,
then they lost it very quickly after
yeah.
that loss.
I was talking to my wife.
I mean,
and
anybody gets
celebrated-
beat by Vandy, their confidence is going to be shaken.
So my wife and I celebrated 20 years by going down to Beaufort and spending the weekend down there, just nice, quiet. But ended up running into some folks out of the Atlanta area. But the gentleman was a Vandy grad, and we started joking around about football and this, that, and the other. And it was like, I think 14-12 at half for the Bama game when I
Yeah.
ran into him. But we got to chatting a little bit, and I said, yeah, and damn y'all up there in Vandy. He's like,
Ticking
"What?"
off Bama before you
Well-
got to play South
Well,
Carolina.
that too. But I also said, I was like, man, usually South Carolina could always count on a couple wins a season, Vandy being one of them. And I said, but this year we can't do that. Dude, Vandy's in the top 25. They're 5-2 in the top 25.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean,
Did they win this weekend?
yeah.
Who did they play?
Ball State.
Oh.
But hey, Ball State gave them a run now. I think they only beat them by 10. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, like I said.
So you start talking about D2 teams, that's who I'm thinking of.
I mean, we have what? So we're 7 weeks in, and there's.
Like,
we
let
still
me
have
let me
5 more
put
games.
Virginia against Vandy, and I think Virginia would win.
You think this year? You think that?
Yeah,
I disagree.
I certainly think that.
Well, I mean,
But Vandy shows up.
I'm not saying you can't
They're that
think it.
they're that upset team.
Man.
They're the Maryland of the ACC in the '90s.
Yeah.
They're gonna beat the ranked teams and then lose to the unranked teams.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But anywho, well,
Who were their losses to?
who, Vandy?
Yeah, you able to pull that up?
Yeah, let me tell you. Yeah, man. Vandy is, my God, where is Vanderbilt? Oh, yeah, they're 25th. They're 2-1 in the conference. They beat Alabama. All right, so let's go back and look at Vandy's schedule. They beat Virginia Tech 34-27.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's a shocker. That tells me they're a little bit better.
Yeah, they beat, I guess that's App State. That's a fellow opponent of your beloved team.
What was their score there?
Alcorn State. These logos are so small.
I hear they make Costas with readers in them now.
Hey, wait a minute, though. That's funny. You should write that down. Hey,
It's a true statement. It's a true statement.
Hey, but you know what? You know who Vandy lost to? Georgia State.
Yeah.
36-32.
Like I said, lose to the underranked.
But they lost to Missouri.
But whenever they beat
That's
Virginia.
right. They lost to Missouri when they should have. They had them beat.
Yeah.
They lose to Missouri, like we were talking about.
And whenever they beat Virginia Tech was ranked.
They lost to Missouri 30-27. And they were at Missouri. That's right. And we were just talking about Missouri. They always find a way. They beat Alabama. They beat Kentucky. I don't know the identity of this Kentucky team, by the way.
I don't think they know their identity.
You know? This
It's like Two-Face in the Batman comics.
Hey, but you know what? We were just talking about it. Vandy does get Texas next week. Hey, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So.
And Texas just fell.
Yeah. Yep.
So the question is, will they start Ewers or will they start Manning?
Well, Manning didn't have a lot of.
I didn't see how well he did. I just seen that they pulled a Ewers and put in Manning.
I think they put him in for what, a series or two, and then switched back over. He didn't have much more success. So.
Well, since we don't have much time this week, why don't we discuss what we're going to discuss next week?
Yeah. So we had on our quote unquote agenda. I wanted to give an update on the PBMs. You know, if folks who are just tuning in this episode, PBMs are pharmacy benefits managers. The Federal Trade Commission had an interim staff report that was posted back in July. That's where I sort of got.
I think that needs a long segment because I want to be educated on that as well.
Yeah. So that's where they came onto my radar. Since then, the Mississippi Board of Pharmacies this past week published the audit of 2022 audit on, I believe it was Optum, which is a PBM. Some of those, some of the stuff that I read did not paint Optum in a good light, to be fair. But then also the United States, the FTC, there's an update on the lawsuit against, and I'm going to read these names off, but basically for folks out there, I'm going to say Caremark RX LLC, Zinc Health Services, that's CVS. These are the named folks in the lawsuit that the government brought. Express Scripts, Evernorth Health, that's Cigna. Also Ascent Health Services LLC is Cigna. Optum RX, which I just spoke of, Optum RX Holdings LLC, and MSR Pharma Services LLC. All of those folks are affiliated with United Health Group. So a pre-hearing scheduling conference will be held tomorrow, actually. So on this lawsuit that the government brought against these PBMs. So just want to update the listeners on some of this stuff. But we're just going to run out of time this go around. So
just a quick assertion: if our government is paying for something and people are receiving the government funds, shouldn't we be able to put a cap on how much they can charge? Like, if we're willing to give you money, we're saying you should only be able to charge this much.
Well, a lot of times, and a lot of folks have been talking about, with Medicare and Medicaid, we should be able to leverage that buying power.
Yeah.
Right? Just like Amazon does. We should be able to leverage that buying power when it comes to our drug prices.
But even with our affordable housing issue, how many people are taking Section 8 and, the landlord's just going to charge $1,100 a month for a 2-bedroom?
Yeah. Well,
and because they know they're going to get $800 from the government.
Yeah. Well, and to take it to a macro level, Trump's talking about this on a national stage when he ran back in 2016. Remember, he said the trade deficits that we have with China and these other countries we've been taking advantage of. There's the U.S. markets are the most sought after, so we should leverage that buying power to get the best prices. Well, that's not what's been going on. So, to your point, same thing. The government could have folks that could advocate on the
But that way they're not controlling people that don't take,
right,
that aren't going to apply to this.
The private, right.
So we're not saying that every private company the government's controlling.
Yeah.
But the same thing with our schools.
Yeah. Well,
we as a state, if we're going to give you funds for education, we should be able to limit what you can charge anyone within the state. And if you don't want it, don't take the government funds.
Yeah. Well, and same thing with, I think last time we actually overhauled welfare, I think was back, late 90s with Clinton and a Republican Congress. There were some strings attached. You had to go apply for a job. You had to stay off drugs. There was all these conditions that you had to meet. So, but yeah, that's for a later discussion because that could probably take a full episode. We probably could get some guests, from each side of this issue to just inform our two listeners.
See if we can get Congressman Fry on.
Yeah, that'd be
cool.
That'd be good. But yeah, thanks to Comer Distributing again for sponsoring the episode. We had Highland Brewing out of Asheville, North Carolina, the seasonal Clawhammer Oktoberfest. It's a Marzen lager.
I think I'm actually liking the Marzens.
I know.
Yeah.
I was going to say
I never would have ordered one before, but every one that we've had, I think I've really enjoyed. And now I'm not scared if I happen to walk into a brewery with the family and it's like, that says Marzen. I'm like, yeah, I'll try that.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, what's your closest beer to Coors Light?
But yeah, that's so true. It's good fall beer.
Yeah.
Definitely recommend it for sure. So, that'll about wraps up this episode.
Let's not go 2 weeks so we don't have so much to talk about.
Hey.
Like, we haven't even really talked too much.
I know.
Yeah, I got to share the one story, though.
My week will be sort of normal.
Yeah.
And let's not get away from talking about we are in the final 2 weeks before our election. Folks, early voting begins here in York County. Anywhere you're listening, I'm sure early voting in South Carolina has begun. We've posted this before. We'll try to post it again. There's several, 4 or 5 locations here in York County alone, whether it's Rock Hill, Fort Mill, York, Clover, maybe some in between.
Not the government center? Almost.
Well, I know here, the Baxter Hood Center here at York Tech is one of the Rock Hill locations.
I'm going to the hood to vote.
Well, that hood had power when the hurricane came through is all I'm saying.
No, but I want to share the one story. Yeah. I finally did catch up with you, and I'm on my way back from West Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm complaining to you about the toll roads because they want to take cash, and I have no cash.
It is a messed up system. Yeah. Traveling, having an office up in Ohio.
It's a federal interstate. Why do I have to pay to travel on a federal interstate?
And they don't
There's
take
not
ATM
another
cards.
option.
They don't take ATM cards.
Yeah, no debit, no
so that's
credit.
old school West Virginia, baby.
I wonder how much corruption's happening there. Where's that money going from? Where's all my quarters and dollars going? And they won't give you a receipt either. I need receipts for the nonprofit. There's no receipt.
What?
Yeah, they didn't give me a receipt at
So
all.
when those tolls used to be $2 before I got the Easy Pass,
Yeah.
they would give you a receipt if you
No,
asked
they
for
don't give me a receipt.
Hmm.
I asked, so we don't have receipts. They're just collecting the cash. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a toll
I
worker
kept handing
grift right there.
$5 bills. Like I literally stopped, broke a $100 bill, and said I needed all in fives. They're like, I didn't know how many tolls we were going to go into, but it seemed like I went 10 miles and I run into another toll.
From where you were, it was 2.
No, it's 4.
It's 4 now?
I ran into 4 from crossing the Virginia into West Virginia border,
Yep.
going to Charleston, West Virginia. 4 tolls.
Oh, okay. So they've cracked down. It used to be 3 running through the whole
And
state.
I asked the lady, I was like, can I just drive through? Like, and then y'all take a picture of my tag and mail it? And she's like, you don't want to do that in West Virginia.
Well, but that is true because the toll is one thing, and then the mobile service is like a 5 multiple, right?
Ah.
They do it in North Carolina, in Florida.
So they might be charging me $30 per one that I'm driving through.
If you don't have the token or
Yeah. Well,
that they
so
recognize.
I'm coming back and I'm thinking, okay, straight. I was going to stop and meet a family that I know that lost a child in Mount Airy. And I'm thinking straight ticket, no problem. I'm going through the toll booth. Well, there's a lot of construction. They do a horrible job at like warning you, like this lane ends in West Virginia as well.
Especially if you're on the phone.
Yeah. It wasn't my fault. It was all their fault. Right? But-
Listen, I'm telling the damn story.
It's my lie. Let me tell it how I want to. So I go through a toll and I get on the phone with Heath and I'm talking. And we're talking for a bit because we haven't talked much and we're
Yeah.
catching up. And then I get another phone call and I'm talking to somebody and I look down. I'm 40 miles going the wrong direction. So I just added,
Yep.
even at 40 miles an hour, I just added an hour and 20 minutes to my trip here just
yeah.
to get back.
Well, and because I'm so familiar with that route, when you told me about this, I was like, oh, I've done that twice.
Yeah.
And it's always because, and everyone who's run through there around the Wytheville area, when you get north of there, where 77 and 64 split.
Yeah, I was going down 64.
Yeah. All of a
And
sudden.
you got to drive 10 miles before you can get to the next exit.
It's because to continue on 77, you have to take that exit that then feeds you back around to the right.
Yeah.
And if you stay straight, which feels like the interstate,
Yeah.
it starts directing you west towards Tennessee or
Yeah.
and it's like, damn it. I've done
That's
it
where I
twice.
was. And then as I'm trying to pull off, it's like I got to wait 10 miles to the next exit. I was like, this is like missing the 901 exit in Rock Hill, and you got to wait till you get all the way down to Chester on 9 and turn around and come back. Like, this is just wrong.
That's right. Yeah, that's funny, man.
All right.
Well, thanks for listening.
yes.
Y'all have a good, safe week, and hopefully we're going to get back out on a regular schedule next week.
Yeah, let's try our best.
Thanks, man.
Anything you want or who you want to be, you can be. Just remember